Murdoch gets afraid. Murdoch is a really useful engine who likes to pull passengers on the island of Sodor. He does it so well that he had been doing it for years and was always getting good at everything he wants to be good at. He was also a goods engine and a really strong engine too. But Murdoch was getting old and was still afraid of everything from his future and was always preparing not to be worried about them all. One day he was pulling passengers with Spencer. They were at Wellsworth Station. How's it going, Murdoch? Said Spencer. It's going great, said Murdoch, now that I'm doing well today. That's good to hear, said Spencer, and with that, Murdoch smiled. Just then the Duke and Duchess were on board. The guard blew his whistle and Spencer was ready to go. Goodbye, Murdoch, said Spencer. You know I still have to go. I know, Spencer, said Murdoch, and with that, Spencer sped away. Wow, said Murdoch, I can't believe an engine like Spencer can go this fast, he thought. Me neither, said his driver, but Spencer is quite good for his speed. And with that, Murdoch agreed with his driver. Murdoch's guard blew the whistle, and Murdoch was out of the station as well. Murdoch had been working hard all day and was ready to get some rest. He was about to go back to the sheds when the Fat Controller arrived. He had some news for Murdoch. Edward, I want you to go to the docks and help Edward with some deliveries today. They're for Wellsworth Station. Yes, sir, said Murdoch, and Murdoch puffed away. He was getting really tired. Just then, however, Murdoch clanked slowly into the docks. He found Edward, and Edward was coupled to Murdoch. Hey, Murdoch, said Edward, you look tired. I am, said Murdoch. The Fat Controller had been working me hard all day, and I hope this work with you is one more, and then that's the end of it. I'm sure it will be, said Edward, and he smiled. And then Cranky spoke severely to Murdoch and Edward. You two have got what we came for. Now please leave. All right, said Edward, and with that, Murdoch and Edward were out of the docks. They were ready to go to Wellsworth Station with the two brake vans full of deliveries to take to Wellsworth Station. Murdoch was puffing along, and so was Edward as well. The weather was cold, but Murdoch didn't mind. His driver had been keeping the heating on his boiler all day. They finally came to Wellsworth Station and the deliveries were finally here. The Fat Controller finally spoke to both Murdoch and Edward. You two have worked hard all day, and you should all go to sleep tonight. And with that, you two shall rest for a few minutes. You two shall rest for a few minutes tomorrow morning before more work will arrive. Yes, sir, thank you, sir, said Edward, and with that, Edward the Blue Engine himself was out of Wellsworth Station and he puffed away. And Murdoch followed Edward. Suddenly, however, something went wrong. Murdoch was lost, and he was afraid of losing Edward, but Edward had already lost him. He found out that he was going to the old bridge. He whistled peep peep to himself about the warning, and the sound echoed everywhere. Murdoch crept slowly to the old bridge. The old bridge was old, and it was very unsafe. Murdoch slowed down and stopped. He was worried about falling down. His driver and fireman were concerned. Now they could only watch and wait. And Murdoch had already stopped. He wasn't out of water yet, but Murdoch was afraid. He was too old to think about crossing old bridges, and with that he wanted to be brave again. But Murdoch was still afraid. The day began dark and misty, and the rain was beginning to drizzle. The rain was everywhere, and it was dark, cold and miserable. Murdoch couldn't move. He was scared of the old bridge. Murdoch stood there all night and was afraid. His driver and fireman were sheltered inside his cab all day, and they wanted to go home. 3 minutes later, Murdoch stayed on the old bridge, feeling afraid, when he heard a whistle. Peep, peep! He didn't recognize the whistle, but he was afraid that someone could get him. Who are you? Said Murdoch. I don't know who you are, but you better not push me off that bridge. But Murdoch was wrong to think that it was someone coming to harm him. Just then, he heard the whistle again. Who are you? The engine's whistle was Edward. Edward finally came to rescue Murdoch. He gently crossed the bridge and buffered up to Murdoch. Edward, said Murdoch, I'm glad you came for me. The Fat Controller told me to find you. He was worried about you. Really, said Murdoch. You've lost me. I know, said Edward. I could have slowed down for you. I'm sorry, Murdoch. No, it's fine, said Murdoch. And with that, slowly and gently, the two engines crossed the bridge together, and Murdoch wasn't afraid anymore. It had stopped raining, and the night still only had mist. It was very hot instead of windier now. And with that, they puffed proudly back to the main line and back to the sheds till the end of winter, till the beginning of summer, and then the two engines together have both done it together. Murdoch was home. We did it, Edward, said Murdoch. You are a good friend. Thank you, Murdoch, said Edward. I know you couldn't have done it without me. Sure not, said Murdoch, and with that, Edward and Murdoch smiled, and they did really well. During their adventure, and Murdoch wasn't afraid anymore.